Interesting show today. Their history segment on FCTV and on YouTube has been a big hit, 1855, and they are in studio today. Samuel Temple is with us, also Logan Ledman is with us, and they've got a big shindig coming up, celebrating a couple of years of this series at the Rice County Historical Society Museum on Sunday. Thanks, guys, for coming in today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, awesome. Fantastic. So, let's first of all plug the event on Sunday. What time is it? What are you going to do?
Well, we open our doors, the doors of the Historical Society, at 1 o'clock that afternoon on Sunday. And at 1:30, that's when the festivities will really start to heat up. So from 1 to 1:30, people will be able to just enjoy the museum, enjoy the artifacts, and then 1:30 they'll be able to come in and enjoy the festivities.
And the festivities are what? In the Carlander room? They show...
Yes.
I'm guessing your series will be up on the screen.
We will be. We have various events planned throughout the day. We'll have a sneak peek of an upcoming episode. We'll have a Q&A session. We put together a fun sort of grand entrance video to kick everything off. So we've got a lot of things planned for the day that we're excited to show people.
Samuel's voice is hoarse today because he played Igor in the Young Frankenstein musical.
Yes, being on stage can wear out a voice a little bit, but luckily we got everything recorded that we needed to for the show.
Right.
Just before I turned into this. So.
Well, it sounds okay, doesn't it?
It's dramatic.
And you went to the show and you told me it was excellent.
Oh, it was, yeah. A great show, Young Frankenstein.
The musical.
Yeah.
Yes.
I enjoyed myself.
It does
immensely.
follow the movie, which was hilarious.
It was.
Marty Feldman was the character that you played.
Yes, yeah, it's really interesting to during part of the day have to be in that kind of mode of character, and then during another part of the day have to go into the serious history side of things. So to try to bounce back and forth between those two is a fun challenge.
I've only got a couple of minutes before a market update here, so I don't know if I can give the whole history of this. But can you summarize? First of all, you guys met at Northfield High School, right?
Yeah, we did. Well, we met at Northfield Middle School actually in 6th grade,
Okay.
and so we knew each other for the entirety of middle school. And then after the summer of 8th grade year, he just called me up one day. He had this idea. He said, "Do you want to do a television series about the history of faribault?" Now, I was a Northfield citizen, so it was kind of out of left field, but I knew Sam. I trusted Sam, and I didn't really have a whole lot going on in 8th grade. So I said, yeah, sure. And I got into it, and I've really enjoyed discovering the history of this town. I've found a lot to learn and a lot even to be inspired by in the history of this town, so I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
And did you enjoy history before that?
I did, yeah, but honestly, it's the history of just this small town in southern Minnesota has inspired a lot of even deeper appreciation of history for me. Just understanding that you can find immensely important things about history everywhere.
And you called Logan because not only was he your friend,
but he was a consummate historian as well as a public speaker, and I knew he was someone that could handle both the on-screen work and the off-screen work. And it's not often that you know someone that you kind of think on the same wavelength as, and Logan and I really do have similar ways of thinking about going about projects and about the world and about things like that. So we're not only good friends, but we also work well together and know how to be critical of each other.
what I like when I've seen some of your segments is your videography is not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not typical.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I like the videography because you have shots throughout the program that are maybe from a ways away, or maybe you've got, I'm assuming, a drone up there.
Yes.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. We try to make it as cinematic as possible, just because it's another tool to engage in storytelling. Not only do we have interviews, but we also have ourselves telling the story, and we have the music layers into it, the cinematography layers into it. So we just want to use every facility possible to tell the story the best we can.
Yeah, we'll talk more about 1855 and the 2 years shindig out on their website, northlandbuildings.com. Every time I read those, I think of our ancestors and what they would be thinking if they heard about the .com stuff. Anyway, we're talking about history today with Samuel Temple and Logan Ledman. The 2-year shindig coming up on Sunday. It's a 2-year shindig, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's already been 2 years. It's really crazy stuff. Mm-hmm.
Now, you said you started this in 8th grade.
That's correct.
And you're both juniors.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So we started it this summer between 8th and 9th grade. So we weren't quite high schoolers yet. But we
so
started.
Our first episode came out then in our first month of high school then.
Mm.
So we started production in the summer of 8th grade.
Mm.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Remember,
I mean, you guys don't have driver's licenses.
Yeah,
right.
Everything that first summer came together much better than it should have by any rational means. We managed to get interviews with the executive director of the Rice County Historical Society for our first episode as freshmen in high school.
Cool.
Coming in, we managed to get interviews with Scott Hansen, who
he was back when he was a dean of students at BA.
So that came together well. All of the production elements came together really well. We, no hiccups. Research went swimmingly. I mean, for us having just figuring out what we were doing and even what the show was going to be, despite overcoming those technical challenges, it went really well, and it gave us a lot of confidence as we started though.
And how did you settle on 1855?
Well, we were trying to just think about, kind of what the title would be. We were actually sitting in the library, and it was just kind of brainstorming, and there just nothing was figuring out. I think eventually we just said, well, we'll just call it Faribault history or whatever like that. But then we thought, well, maybe there's a significant year in there. And the year 1855 is when the town was officially platted and mapped and became known as the city of Faribault. Because, Alexander Faribault had settled there in the 1820s, I believe. And then people started coming in the early 1850s as settling became legal in the territory and state. And then 1855 is when the town officially became not just a settlement, but the town of Faribault. And that's really kind of just hit on what we wanted to do. And so there is still some confusion. A lot of people think that we only talk about 1800s history, or my friends have some interesting variations on the title. I think they deliberately, every time I see them, I have a friend that, so how is 1876? How's 1952?
Right.
So we get a hard time, but so far it seems to have worked.
Yeah, 1855. And we were chatting a bit during the market update. Not only the Rice County Historical Society, but the Minnesota State Historical Society have recognized your works.
Well, right. Actually, one of the things that happened that we were so fortunate during our first summers, we were also interviewed by the Faribault Daily News, Sam White at Faribault Daily News, who did a very nice story on us as we got started. And the Minnesota Historical Society was kind enough to share that story, send it to their following on Facebook, and let people know what we were doing as we were getting started.
Well, it's probably not every day of the week that a couple of soon-to-be freshmen in high school are putting together a video series on history in Faribault, or in any community for that matter.
It certainly is a strange thing when you step back. And I'll, just once in a while when Logan and I are working on something and we're contemplating how to tell this obscure story in history, just kind of, this is very strange, this is very weird. But we've made an interesting system of it, and it's become a regular part of our lives. So it's and it's something that we're grateful for. It's gratifying to have something that's unique to you and your interests, and to put together a project like this that is continually gratifying.
Now, you guys are passionate about this. Now, your latest segment the longest one?
It is.
Yeah, our last segment we released was the Peoples of Faribault episode, and that was around.
It was a little over 40 minutes
40
long.
minutes, yeah, yeah.
Because it covered a ridiculously wide range of topics, starting with the Dakota peoples, ending with the Somali peoples in Faribault. Just an enormous range of topics. We learned so much in the making of that episode. We spent hours and hours and hours researching at the Rice County Historical Society, and it came together to be a 40-minute long video, our longest and our most viewed yet, and our most shared yet.
Because we're all peoples.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. That was 9 to 10 months of production, I think,
Right.
in total.
Yeah.
Because we interviewed a class at the Cannon River STEM School about the topic, and they shared their their family trees, and they did some research on what's ethnicity, what's a nationality, to learn the differentiation with that, and then they did share their family trees. We didn't put that in the episode because I think there was kind of you didn't necessarily want people to share their family histories with the world, so we have them kind of as an online feature,
Right.
so that the kids can view their research. And that was a really great experience because it's getting people interested. It's getting young people aware of how history is right. It's in them. It's in everyone. That history isn't just something in books. It's families. It's people. It's everyone.
Yeah, we all have a story.
Right.
We all have a history. In your segment, you talked to Larry Ritchie
Mm-hmm.
about the Dakota.
Mhm.
Yes.
We talked to Lisa Imbolt Simons as well. She does ESL teaching for adults in town, so she has a unique window there. And then we talked to Bashir Omar as well. He's the chair of the Faribault Diversity Coalition as well. He had a lot of really great experiences for us.
Talked about Somalia.
Yeah. He's
And-
Somali, yes.
I see you talked to Paul Panofsky
Mhm.
from the city.
Yeah, oh yeah. That was a great one too, because it was such a it was a really interesting perspective on that too, because we had talked to Bashir, who was a Somali, and we talked to Lisa, who's doing the ESL, and Larry, who's a historian, and then Paul, who's working in city government, and to see that he had interesting perspectives on how all these different peoples are coming together in Faribault and working together from a city government perspective, from a parks and recreation standpoint. That was just really interesting for us, and we were really glad to have him there.
So what was your take
On
on the last segment?
the last segment, it is certainly the episode that I am the most proud of, I think. Well, I guess we continually grow with each episode,
Mm-hmm.
and this episode really, people's felt like a culmination of everything that we had worked on. And I don't think we could have done the episode any sooner, because it really took everything that we learned about how to incorporate interviews, how to do research, how to balance the comedy and while also taking the history seriously, how to keep it light, and even with the framing, the cinematography of the episodes, how to when to use movement, when to be still. I think this is the episode that if I want to show someone the best of our ability, it would be the Peoples of Faribault episode.
At this point.
At this
Right,
point.
yeah.
And you still got
and,
another.
And there were lots and lots of people who saw,
Mhm.
and we had an outpouring of support from the
Mhm.
community on our last episode, which was once again very gratifying, and it's really fantastic to have community support for something once again as obscure and kind of strange as this is that we do. It's amazing to have continuous and growing support from the Faribault community.
Mhm.
I like the Peoples of Faribault title, because as I just said, we're all people.
Mhm.
I have been blessed to, travel a lot of spots in the world, and my biggest take when I come back home is we're all people.
Mhm.
We all love, we all hate, we all, have the same desires in life in terms of what we want to do.
Mhm.
And that comes across in the history too. There are all kinds of, you go through history and we look at the history of the town, and it's just, Scandinavians or Germans or Irish or whoever, they're just coming here, they just want a better life, good life for their kids, and that's a continuous theme that we just see coming at us again and again and again through history, and that was one of our main takeaways.
And the timing of this is incredible when you consider what's going on in the country right now, not just here, but in the country.
Mhm.
Well, we had always known that we wanted to do an episode about the Peoples of Faribault, even before any of the stuff in the country had gone on. So we knew from the very beginning, but I think I know we have been in production for a long time as well, but there is definitely, I think there's always going to be lessons for people to take away from this episode, no matter what the context is, because there will always be people coming to our country, coming to Faribault. There will always be an intermixing of different groups and different ideas in this country. So I think that understanding why and how people come to our country and why and how people come to Faribault, I think that will always be important to study.
And what makes this country great is that melting pot. Those different ideas from different cultures. Don't you think?
Right, and the different cultures, they become their own. They retain their heritage, but then also can intermix with other heritage. We see Norwegians and Germans. They've 100 years ago they were like very much. You could still draw a division there, and then we see that division today. With the Somali population, with the Hispanic population. Right now, that's division. I would argue that in 100 years, the Somali population will be just as integrated as the the Irish population.
Probably take less than that now.
Right. At the rate as things are accelerating, and then at that point there will probably be another group of people that are ostracized and misunderstood, and whose stories need to be told. And that's the biggest takeaway, is that history really repeats itself. We have these statements, we have these kind of beats throughout history, that the same things that were said about Germans in the 40s could be said about groups today. The same things that were said about the Irish could be said about groups today, and even dating farther back to pre-Faribault. There's no matter what point in history, there's sort of different groups shift into these social positions, and then likewise also shift out of them eventually. I think that's the takeaway from the episode, that history repeats itself. So not only can that be comforting, but it can also show us that in some areas we can do better.
We can learn from each other. Logan Ledman, Samuel Temple are in studio. They're talking about the 2-year shindig coming up this Sunday at Rice County Historical Society Museum. You said it starts at 1.
Starts at 1, yep, and we're planning for it to go on a couple of hours. Just the idea is we just want to come out and have some fun with some of the people who have enjoyed our work and who want to celebrate together the community of Faribault and its history.
Couple of years you've been doing this.
2 years, yeah.
And it sounds like you're going to continue.
Absolutely.
That's the plan. Absolutely. Yeah, we love doing it, and we're having a blast as well. It's fun and it's interesting. We learn so much and we get so much out of doing this that we're not planning on stopping anytime soon.
When you head to college?
That's right. I'm hoping that's not too soon. Well, just for my parents' sake.
Yeah.
They don't want me out of the house yet. Well, I mean, maybe they do.
No, but I mean, you're obviously thinking of college.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But I'm 16, and sometimes it doesn't hit me that college is now soon. It's a little bit scary.
I mean, after this year, you got one more year of high school.
Don't remind me.
Oh, sorry. About you, Samuel? Future plans? You know what you're going to do after high school?
I tend to, when I think of the future, I'm a worrier, but I'm also a planner. So I'm either worrying about it, when I consider the future, I'm either worrying about it or I'm making an intricate plan for it. But then a couple months later, the plan will change because of things that happen. So at the moment, I'm just trying to take it a project at a time, an episode at a time almost, and then wherever I am, when the time comes to make that decision, will just be what it is.
For those who have not seen this, they can view it on FCTV, the website. Right?
They can view it. FCTV uses the streaming service Vimeo, which is free, and you can go to fctv10.org to get the link to that. You can also watch it on FCTV, the channel itself, and at the Shindig and at the Historical Museum right now. We have DVDs for sale of Season 1, and at the 2-year Shindig, we will be releasing the DVDs for Season 2.
Wow. You're going to have like a special Christmas set or something?
Well, maybe when we have a full season, maybe when the show wraps, we'll put together an 1855 box set.
Maybe.
This is going to be on Amazon or anything sometime soon?
We don't have anything going with Amazon.
If you have some contact information for that, we'll gladly take it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you would.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I looked up some events that happened in 1855 here in the United States, and it is interesting to note how much was going on back then.
Mm.
For example, the first Sioux Indian War in Nebraska happened on September 3rd, 1855.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's not long after that, and we have some troubles here.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
U.S. Dakota War, yeah.
Yeah, the mid 1800s was certainly a tumultuous time for Native people, especially with more and more settlers moving west, and you know, the thoughts then was that there wasn't enough space for everyone, that cultures couldn't mix, or a lot of people thought they shouldn't, that there was one right way of life, one correct way to do things, and that caused a division of people. And like Larry Ritchie says in Peoples of Faribault, once you start dividing people up, it's difficult to bring them back together. And in the case of, you know, the Native people, and with the Dakota in Faribault, we see that even now we still haven't brought these people together. Yeah.
And isn't that what we're seeing now? I mean, here locally.
Sure. Well, I mean, if
People thinking that, you know, one way of life is the way of life.
you could certainly make that case, yeah. And the 1850s, you did see a lot of that kind of attitude towards the natives, and then going on through the rest of the century for all kinds of other people. We talked about Germans, we talked about Irish. It's absolutely true.
So Samuel, we think we've come a long way since then, but we really haven't, have we?
Luckily, we have come a long way in terms of time, in terms of we have come a long way from when we, you know, first started experiencing these people as a nation, as a division of people. So we've come a long way in that we have a long ways to look back and see these different examples in history. So we have the potential to do better and go farther, and you know, have less, almost. I would say a lot of people are, you know, ashamed of what happened, you know, with our relations with the Native people. So history provides us with the chance to accelerate beyond that and do better and learn from that. So, and a lot of people in the community are working to do better, to bring more people together, to understand different cultures. It's just a matter that time will tell how far we've really come.
Anything, Logan, about this latest segment that you guys did, the Peoples of Faribault, that surprised you?
That surprised me? Well, I think one of the things that really surprised us as we were doing our research, like I said, we learned so much doing the research, and one of the big things that I learned that surprised me just on wow, I didn't know that standpoint, was the treatment of Germans during World War II. It was shocking how even we think by the 1940s for sure people had to be, you know, more accepting of Germans and less scared of them and that kind of thing, but it was was it millions? I don't think it was millions, but it was
certainly thousands.
It was thousands of Germans living in America were put in camps, in internment camps during World War II for fears that they might be spies, and plenty of Germans during World War I were also suspected of being spies and treated badly and harassed and ostracized and that kind of thing. So it was just 100 years ago, and less than 100 years ago, that was one of the things that surprised me, was the treatment of Germans in particular.
Propaganda, you know,
right.
Being German was un-American. It was against the American ideals.
Mm-hmm.
They were seen as monsters, enemy aliens.
And there were a lot of first generation Americans then. I bring that up because my dad's father, my grandfather, came over to this country from Germany. And then my dad fought in World War II as a German American.
Yeah.
That was the struggle that a lot of German Americans, first and second generation, had to deal with in those times. You know, where does your allegiance lie? For lots of German Americans, their allegiance did land with America, and I would say for most of them, they had found that they had come to this country and they wanted to be here, they wanted to be a part of it, and a great number of them were willing to fight and die for this country.
And in his home, they spoke nothing but German.
Right.
When he went to school, he had a hard time at school because he didn't know English. They didn't have English as a second language courses back then. You had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah, and that's what we see. Luckily today there are more resources, but we still do see that barrier because as more later generations, there's actually an interesting pattern throughout history of the acceleration of English being used in different cultures and different households. It's a generational thing, really. So the struggles that Germans faced when they first came are the struggles that Norwegians faced, are the struggles that Hispanic people faced, Somalis faced. But we see that once that language barrier goes down and more people either know English or are bilingual, then really that's when we can begin to see each other just as people and not as separate people.
Sure hope that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm glad that you said that, because one of the things also we've looked and we see that there's this pattern of hesitance each time, but also every time there's this pattern of acceptance eventually that gets there. People, after a couple generations, they start to learn English. There's enough of them that they start to become a strong part of the workforce. And once that happens, it's a gradual process, but once it happens, the cultures start to come together and work together. And that is something that we've seen happen nearly every time. So we are confident that that's the pattern that will continue as history marches forward.
You know what your next segment is going to be on?
Yes, actually, we just filmed this recently. We filmed our parts for this. We're doing an episode about the Burgartsmeyer Sioux and their family. And so we got to speak with Buck and Bruce and Brian.
Oh, that's a great history there.
It was phenomenal to hear the stories of just one family, one business. Just how there's just this microcosmic, just whole world of stories just in these individuals.
So you get more than one out of there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right, yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. Again, 1 o'clock Sunday. Everybody's invited to your 2-year shindig at the Rice County Historical Society Museum. I'm sure it'll be a blast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and all the festivities officially kick off at 1:30, so we hope people can make it.
All right, you're in tune to KDHLAM Faribault, Minnesota. That clock is off. Just now says 10 o'clock.
North Korea's foreign minister just now
Don't you love
speaking
it?
outside of his hotel in New York City. He said that President Trump has declared war upon their country, and because the UN Charter allows his country to defend itself, North Korea feels justified in shooting down
Well, thanks, guys.
US planes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
in North Korea.